Hello, I'm Eagle Gardens 1 on Instagram, and this is fucking talking shit with Eagle, episode 772. Hopefully, you guys have had a great day. I sure have. Looking forward to having a great conversation with this gentleman right here, Organitron. You want to tell us how you're doing, and of course, where we can find you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Organitron. I'm out of West Michigan. You can find me on Instagram at Organitron. Um, yeah, follow me up. I'm pretty open book, like to chat with people, try to be open and share. So yeah.
Right on, right on. The west side. How's the snow over there, boy? We're
We are
getting some good
just starting.
snow.
We're just starting to get hit tonight. Like we got a pretty heavy one coming at us right now. So it's gonna be we'll be locked in probably until Saturday morning.
Yeah, it's coming down pretty good. It started here around 5 o'clock, and I think we've got about 5 inches already. So
Where are you located?
I'm up in Holton Lake.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you guys are gonna get nailed.
Yeah, not looking forward to it, but gonna be a good Christmas nonetheless. So
Yeah.
I guess what do you before we get going, what do you have to smoke on this evening? Did you bring anything to partake on while we chat?
So actually, um, I'm probably gonna choke my way through most of it, but just because I told you I caught a little wook flu coming home from Eagle Clash, so been a little under the weather. That's kind of what I said when I posted. The thing got delayed, but what I have here is something I was gifted actually from Burner, Uncle Burn from his head stash cookies at the Eagle Clash. So got that rolled up. I'm gonna smoke that here while we're chatting, and then I've got some nice rosin here, and just gonna look away and try not to die for you guys.
First and foremost, congratulations on taking some place out there and at the Ego Cup there. Is that right? You win
I
some
did not.
awards?
I didn't place, but the invite alone is, that is to be able to be there. Help represent Michigan. I got to be out there with three other guys, Organomelts, Turf Wizard, and Iron Roots, and it was good, man. Like it was pretty cool. We were all kind of everybody. Well, me and Organomelts and Iron Roots, we shared Airbnb, and just it was real cool. Having Ari from Michigan and everyone being just kind of on the same page, and happy to be out there to represent the state. And we got a lot of big things going on here, so just a real honor to be able to be chosen to represent us here.
Right on. That was the sun grown celebration that I meant. I was looking out of the corner of my eye there, right?
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so yeah, I took third place for our papaya cake in the sun grown celebration earlier this year. So yeah, that was actually really cool. Nice to get a single source win. I've been doing a lot of contract work, and some of the entries that we've been doing lately have been collabs with the Grow Father, a good friend of mine. So yeah, it was cool to pull a single source one out as well too. That also actually was my first was our first grow in over a year after my father had passed. So yeah, that was kind of nice. Put one up for him, and for my fiance as well. She had a big part in the garden, and it was kind of her first year really out there slaying with us. She's always been a big help, but she managed most of our outdoor garden this year. So that was pretty cool for her.
That's pretty awesome. I always like to see a nice couple working at a dream. You know what I mean? If it's one-sided, it's super hard to make the dream come true. So I'm all all for seeing the teamwork. So that's awesome that you guys work together and making it
Yeah,
happen.
we really try, man. We stay busy. She's got another job working with a florist, and um, we just kind of, make it work. And she fills the gaps and keeps me, in line. And that's, it's just been good for us. Like, we're really looking forward to this next year and being on the new farm and kind of figuring out how to, come harder. Um, that's really it, man. We're just trying to stay cranking and pushing forward and really just do the thing.
Right on. Well, what I like to do here is try to get to know some of the awesome people here in the community. Find out when they started it and kind of work them up to why they're doing what they do today. So, you're no different, my friend. When did it all start? When did cannabis enter your life?
So I actually started smoking cannabis way too young, 9 years old. And I was, just with my brother and some friends, and we got high on a parking ramp downtown Grand Rapids and rode some skateboards down. And, I got to the bottom of it and couldn't feel my damn legs. And that was kind of it. I just was like, this is probably not good for me at this age, but it's pretty cool. And by 12, I was a daily smoker. Didn't come from the best environment. My father was unfortunately had some addiction issues that weren't really his fault, so to speak. He got in a bad accident and was put on OxyContin at the initial introduction of that drug into the pharmaceutical industry back, and that would have been, early mid 90s. And so I didn't have a lot of guidance in that manner due to that. And I just kind of got deep, I smoked, and got in trouble and the whole bit. So by the time I was 13, I had a couple friends my age that were smoking, and my dad knew, at that point that I was smoking, and he didn't really want me to get in trouble, heavily with it. So he taught me how to cultivate. He brought me out here at the farm where we're at now, where I grew up, and decided that, it was time at about 13, which was right before my freshman year. And so, yeah, by October of my freshman year, I had my first crop and got in trouble going to school with a bag of dank in my pocket. And yeah, I mean, by the time I was 18, I had 3 misdemeanor possession charges, and I just was all about the weed, man. Growing up as a kid, having a lot of friends and, testosterone running, you go to the liquor store or whatever, and your friends are trying to sneak peeks at the nudie mags and stuff. And here I am just looking at High Times centerfolds. I don't care about boobs. You guys see this nug? And yeah, it was just, I was always so enthralled with it, the history of it. And that was kind of, it just drew me in really young, and it's kind of been a steward for me. It's really guided me in my life. And despite getting all those charges by the time I was 18, 3 misdemeanor possessions, it did keep me in line. It kept me from, it kept me home for the most part. And every time I got busted with weed was just an unfortunate circumstance, and unfortunate that, laws are and that I was criminalized for that, and so, yeah, I just, a really long, hard, early journey with marijuana and, what it was to me. And, I really stuck the course and, smoked throughout high school. And when I was 20, I think 21 or 22, 2007, I was carjacked on the west side in Grand Rapids, and some severe spinal damage. And that's basically you know, like that's kind of where a lot of the like medical journey began for me. Um, I still used quite a bit, and I got put on a lot of heavy narcotics after that. In '09, I went from being on a drug called tramadol to being on Norco to being on methadone within a year. And by the time '09 rolled around, I wasn't living in Michigan. I was actually living in Texas. And Michigan voted in medical, and that was it. I told my friends that I was staying with down there. I was like, I'm leaving. I'm going home. And no bullshit, I packed my shit. And like that first weekend after the vote, I packed as much as I could, drove to a pawn shop, sold everything, including this whole stereo out of the vehicle, ripped the speakers out, anything I could get to get home, and just went. I made it to a friend's house in Central Arkansas. Was as far as I was able to make it on the funds that I had, and stayed with them for 2 days, and they were kind enough to give me some money to get me home, a couple $100 for gas to get me home. And I got home and slept on my brother's floor for a little bit, and just got a job and just tried to pull it together, even with my injuries and my addiction still at that time. And I just went for it. I just decided, I didn't want to be like that anymore, and really started grinding away at, trying to heal that part of myself. And cannabis was a big part of that. I ended up being in the first 300 patients in the state in 2009. And not shortly after I got my recommendation signed, I got pulled over with a half pound and arrested, and it was before my paperwork was even in. So, and that was, me just trying to get back on my feet, do the thing. And yeah, it kind of turned into a mess, man. And ended up having, some cover, some friends that helped me out, and I got a really good attorney and, got out of it. And shortly after that, I really was able to nail down and end up quitting methadone cold turkey from only 40 milligrams a day, but arguably that's a lot for some people. So we used to get these Wonka bars, that were coming in from the West Coast at that time. And we ground up, an ounce or something of this hash and made some cookies. And I flushed everything down the toilet and ate them fucking cookies, and there was no turning back. So that was kind of pretty memorable to me, what my father had went through, and being able to, kind of conquer that myself. And that was kind of, the beginning of the medical journey, like I said. And so that was really cool. I was always really proud of myself for that. And we kind of ended up getting a job at a head shop actually shortly after that in 2009. And I was there for about 6 years. And yeah, I ended up being a big, proponent for the medical scene in Grand Rapids, Michigan here, and sold a lot of books, those first round of Cervantes Grow Bibles that were really popular and that kind of stuff. So, a lot of people were afraid to talk about that stuff then. No one really wanted to help. Grow shops in Grand Rapids area still were operating under old rules. They didn't want to tell people how to grow cannabis and this and that. And here I was down at this local head shop, Purple East it was called. And they'd been around for, 30 some years at that point. And I really just didn't give a shit at that point. You weren't going to hurt me. And I wanted to teach people. And I just was constantly, telling people to tell their friends, come on down, get a book. I'll run through it with you. And yeah, I was just kind of got a really good opportunity to, teach and be, kind of a mentor to a lot of local people that really needed that help medically, and that were, really clueless going into this scene in 2009 when it was fresh to us here in Michigan. So that's probably, I would say, my start, a lot happened after that. That's kind of a whole separate journey. So
What an incredible start, and congratulations, first and foremost, for making having the wherewithal to know that you needed to come home, you know what I mean, and find something else to get yourself off of that stuff, man. And
absolutely, man.
it's not an easy task. So congratulations on that, and thank you, you know, uh, for your continued, advocacy after, helping yourself and helping teach others that they can help. Like, that's always been my fight right there. I kind of have came from a family of pharmaceutical addiction too, and I've seen it wipe out
Yep.
family, friends,
Yep.
and it's about
It,
time people can know that the healing power of cannabis. I've often hoped that at some point some rehabs or something can be set up with the use of cannabis to help wean off and
that's
start
actually
anew.
been, if you talk to, some of my friends, it's actually been like a long time um, goal of mine. Um, one of my biggest long-term goals is once we get into compliance here and through it for a few years, maybe 10, 15 years down the road here, hopefully sooner. My dream really is to find a doctor that I can work with and open a clinic that is basically post-methadone treatment. I want to be able to let people know that are in these methadone and treatment clinics that, they don't have to use those kinds of drugs to, get themselves away from those drugs. And I'd really like to open something where, we have that same kind of, almost that same kind of structure, where, people can come in, they can sign up for the program, and, whether they have to come in and unfortunately they're going to have to probably, piss in a cup to show that they're clean, and we'll work with them. We'll make sure that they get, what they need, extracts, edibles, whatever we can do to, help these people transition from these opiates to cannabis, and really, use it as a real exit drug, and kind of get people away from this, and allow them to, take their life back, and that's kind of, always going to be a big dream of mine, and I'm not going to stop pushing for that. So
That's pretty awesome. Anything I could ever help to do, be a part of, I'm here, because that's also been a dream of mine too, to be honest with you. And it widened a
yeah,
little bit in the last few years as I've kind of dipped my mind more seriously into organics. That was a nice a side road, rabbit hole, wormhole, whatever you want to call it. But that started teaching me a lot about me, and I really have come to think that not cannabis can be used as a weaning drug off of some of these other drugs for rehabilitation purposes, but I think it needs to go hand in hand with the cultivation, as you kind of wean them off the drugs and kind of teach them to sustain themselves with a much better medicine. It does, it
yep,
reteaches themselves about themselves, you
so,
know what I mean? I,
yeah, having your hands in that, and I'm not a hater either way. I grew organic my whole life, and even if you're using a bottle to, feed your plants, and that's how you're keeping yourself away from that stuff and keeping busy. Anybody that's out there that's had an opiate addiction knows, man, that like one of the biggest things is keeping yourself busy, and just keeping yourself away from that kind of stuff. And um, I think growing has always been that to me. It kept me with my head down, didn't allow me to kind of fall back into habits or hanging out with people that were bad for me or my habits. And that was kind of huge, and really important. And it did teach me a lot about myself. And I never once in my life thought I was going to be a farmer, and now I'm just that, and I wouldn't change it for anything, and I'm really happy that I can, do this and do this for myself. And and teach other people that, you know, do this for themselves. So
That's pretty awesome. You seem to be super good at it. And it's kind of awesome that you know it just you happen to come down that path of after you know having such an early start. It seemed like it again in a weird way it had a calling of home, huh?
yeah, you know, I'm really fortunate, you know, like I said, I kind of got taught young and was able to just really put my fucking head down on it, man. And that was really big, I think, for me. Um, just, you know, that's really it.
Do you remember some of the early cultivars you worked with?
Oh, yeah. So when I got my first medical garden, actually, I was um, working as an apprentice with a glass blower friend of mine, and he had gifted me original red sour diesel and strawberry cough, and we ran those for a while. And I later moved into some, you know, different stuff. The old TGA was always really big back then, and you know, I ran, you know, so much different stuff from him. The Chernobyl, his old Quirkle, the Vortex, and we ran through a lot of that stuff early. Um, and then a good friend of mine, pretty well known farmer here in Michigan, Spacebound and Down, um, so kind of he's one of my best friends, and he was always a couple steps ahead of me, and he had great cultivars and fortunately a bigger space and more of an opportunity to be able to like really hunt. So he'd find heaters, man, and he'd pass them down to me, and you know, give him, you know, a second eye and a second garden for them to grow in and really like help hone in what was good and what wasn't. We had a bunch of memorables, you know, like some old Nebula. This I can remember this old Burmese. He had an original Burmese. Me and my brother actually had this Burmese Kush, and that was fire. And then this old school Hog's Breath. That was a clone only, um, and that's kind of was like one of the legendary ones for us. Um, and yeah, you know, we had this Cataract Kush, I believe was Cali Connection. Um, and that was, you know, fire. It was like that was one of the first things we seen like a 30% plus return on from like flour to oil. Remember at the time, you know, BHO had just become a thing, and we were all stupid and open blasting still then, and you know, nobody even had a fucking clue yet. You know, we were all just packing glass tubes and running a can through it, and that was the first time, yeah, I seen a 30%er, and people were like, "Fuck no, you didn't get 30%," and that was kind of cool, you know, just early genetics, and um, yeah, man, it's just we ran through shit. They're just, you know, you couldn't hold us back. Like once the floodgates opened, it just, you know, this, that, and the other thing, and we just wanted to find those hitters, man. You know, like, you know, being coming from an opiate addiction, like, you know, you always look for those. You always look for those ones that just like had that, you know, had that medicinal value that like resembled that, you know, narcotic value that, you know, you unfortunately were addicted to, but that was going to help you in a natural way and not harm your body. And you know, I had a lot of really bad spinal issues then, and you know, like especially like that cataract Kush was huge, man. That shit was probably the most medicinal plants we had back then. I'm kind of losing audio here for from you.
My bad. That was me. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Sounds like making hash came with where right when you came back too. I mean, 2009. That sounds like right around the time period you were just coming back.
Yeah, I would say actually, I wouldn't say I started doing, the BHO stuff until probably, it was probably 2011. Not long after that, we were, we were still getting bubble hash, like I used to get bubble hash out of the West Coast, and I was fortunate enough to have some friends that, would procure it and get it here. And, so I was saying about those Wonka bars. And I just they looked like fucking chocolate bars, man. Like, and it was just like heavy wash West Coast, Humboldt County fucking hash. And, like they were probably pressing this shit in these bars before it was even fully dry, but it was fire. It melted. And it just, we didn't, we weren't able to produce like that at the time. We were just washing trim and whatnot for the head. And that was, really cool. And I just really enjoyed that. And we were making full melt just out of our good trim, and dabbing off fucking TI nails, like, 2011, 2012. And right around that same time, I guess it was probably 2010, 2011, we were actually even dabbing that full melt, and that was even before like the BHO stuff. And Nika T actually was, gaining some popularity around then, and essential extracts. And, he was putting out like those screens and different stuff like that. And we just kind of really took to it. And my buddy wasn't really about the BHO at all. And I stayed kind of doing it like as a means of like income processing for other people, and kept kind of doing the solventless stuff for myself and, for my own medicine. And then eventually I just stopped doing BHO altogether. It just became, kind of, it was scary. It was always really volatile. And it became pretty apparent, after a year or two of everyone doing, that the way it was being done, that it was wrong and that it was really dangerous. And so a lot of us put it down, and walked away from it. And I never turned back. And always, like I said, always washed for myself, and would buy bubble hash. And I'd even, buy good BHO and stuff then that was, made in closed loops, and, the wax and the crumble, and, all the different stages of that we went through, throughout the years. So, yeah, just kind of got to be there for all of it. It was really exciting to see throughout the years and the progression of, hash. And it's actually something I mentioned on, an interview the other day, was just kind of that history of hashish and cannabis, and how it was, really the forefront of what cannabis was, back in traditional cannabis, and, overseas and whatnot, and how, Americans now have really grasped the hold of that, and we're kind of reforming, what hashish is and what, this is to cannabis, and kind of refined it and really like made it, an amazing thing, and really bringing that culture back to modern day, modern times and modern day culture. So
Yeah, I've always thought it'd be a little ironic how things have flip-flopped, how we're like rediscovering hash, and the European countries are kind of rediscovering a love of good flower. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's really cool, and I've always had a respect for that, like, and especially the European countries, because, they had hash all those years, because they had access, over there to a lot of the traditional hash that was still being made throughout time. And, us as Americans didn't have that. Like, the best we had was whatever they were making in the hills in Cali and, Oregon and shit. And, if you were lucky enough to get it, you were lucky enough to get it. And, but we didn't get to see things like, that traditional sift and temple balls and, shit like that. And it was always, like, it was always this thing, I'd read about it in High Times magazines, and I'd stare at pictures, and I'd read traditional hashish books. And, it was always just really cool to watch. And it was always something that was like really desired by myself to do here, and to figure out how to like bring that tradition, home to the roots, and kind of like figure it out for ourselves here. And it's just really cool where we've brought it, collectively, as, American hash makers. And we really kind of made a new fucking wave with it, man, for sure.
Definitely keep you guys are still making a new wave with it. You guys have taken it to a new level. It seems like every other time I turn around, it's a jar tech or some other thing, freeze dryer, jar tech. You know what I mean? It is most certainly coming a long way. So what made you actually kind of want to take it from the bubble to the next phase? I've always been such a good fan of some, amazing full melt bubble. I've always wondered what makes you guys take it to that next phase.
So actually, there was a time, and then where flower rosin came into play. Presses started coming out. My buddy's dad was a pneumatic professional, or jobs pneumatics professional, and they ended up building up two presses. And I was fortunate to get my hand on one, and I like one of the like sheets that they were doing, making like shit that just didn't have the pressure and whatnot. But I got one of these pneumatic presses, and was start pressing flower rosin. And at the time, I had a couple.
Hey
Still
there.
can't hear.
There you go.
Yeah, we're here. Yeah, my apologies. I don't have the best. I don't have the best service out here. We're in the sticks, so and no fucking internet, man. We can't get internet here for nothing. It's we're up shit creek with it. So
It happens, man. We're gonna try. Hopefully he'll be patient enough to try to keep the push through. So I'm here. Can you hear me, my friend?
yeah, we're
You
back again.
right.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say sometimes if the signal becomes an issue, you can like turn off the video and it would help a little bit.
Yeah, I might try to dial it if it gets to be a problem, So
so my next question, I heard most of the last answer there, but so what do you think's more medicinal because we're talking about medicine, cannabis as a medicine? Do you think that the flower rosin has more of a medicinal effect because you're not, you know what I mean? We both know we're losing some to the water, the bags, you know what I mean, the press. And so is there a little bit more value to the flower rosin?
at the time, like, the flower rosin seemed to really have like a heavy medicinal value. And everyone was really enjoying it. It got really popular. Um, we had a strain called Tour from Gage Green, and it's a Tahoe OG times grape Stomper BX2. And that was one that my buddy Space Bomb Down had found, and had actually done really well in the flower rosin press. We were, 25% returns on flower rosin, and beautiful, beautiful flower rosin as well. It would. Here we're gonna for now. Let's see for you guys. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can't hear you.
I can hear you.
All right. So yeah, the flower rosin, it was really good. It was really popular. People loved the flower rosin, and I was able to really kind of like get people starting to really want to smoke extracts, with that. And my patients were really into it. And I've always been just a big fan of the full melt. I still am to this day. That will always be my preferred method. Is going to be full melt hash. But flower rosin was just an interesting time. It was a bridge. It got us to where we're at. Rosin now made us realize, kind of some potential, and that was always really cool, man. Like, I started getting into rosin later on, and really just smoking it. I ended up spending a lot of years just smoking other people's after for a while, and I'd still press flower rosin for myself and make full melt. And it wasn't really until 4 or 5 years ago that I really started like pressing rosin, and pressing my full melt into rosin. And I started experimenting. I'd take my good full melt and throw it in a piece of screen, and press it out with a fucking hair straightener or whatever else I could. And it was a slow progression. And now we're at where we're at, and it's been kind of a long journey. I got no audio on you, bub.
I gotta quit muting myself. My dogs tend to tap. You can hear them in the background, or I can hear them in the mic. So I muted
it. You're good. You're good, man. It's I get it. At least I can see your lips moving, and I can say.
I know Chad keeps reminding me you're muted. I'm like, this is fun. But I just, I think cannabis is such a good medicine there. I always kind of worried about the full spectrum about it. So I guess it is just a foothold, I guess, flower rosin, a step in the many faces of hash. But
Yeah, it was still enjoyable. I'll still smoke some good flower rosin. I'm pretty good evaluating hash, and I still come across good hash sometimes. And I've seen good flower rosin even as of recent. That was like, yo, like, great job. And um, I don't discredit or discard anything from anyone, especially if that's what works for them as medicine. I'm always going to be pushing people to refine their stuff and do better. But I also am not going to push anybody that has their methods and what works for them, because that's what works for them. So that's kind of the beauty of this. We have this plant, and we can kind of just we can customize it to ourselves and our needs, and all the way from the seed to the bag. And that's really cool. And it's given a lot of people a journey, and it's given a lot of people a reason to get up in the morning, and something to look forward to, something to be excited about. And the growth that comes with that is pretty irreplaceable for most. So
When was your first competition? What was the first time you felt, man, this stuff is pretty incredible. I'm gonna actually enter it.
So I stayed away from competitions honestly until like 2019. And I don't know, I was always really hard on myself about, my product, and I'm a serious perfectionist, really, heavy ADHD guy, and always really self-conscious about, what I was putting out there. So I didn't compete. And then 2019, we ended up doing hemp, and I decided, like, I want to do some competition. Gage Green did the organic cup that year, and I decided, fuck it, I'm going to enter a bunch of shit. And we entered, our topical from our hemp farm. We entered believe it or not, a solventless CBD bubble hash. And that was a collaboration with one of the farmers I work with now, the Grow Father, and pretty well-known processor here in Michigan, Moonlight Melts. And we had washed like 3,000 grams of whole plant fresh frozen hemp and pulled enough for, our entry. And we took first place for solventless separation for that. We ended up taking a first place for our topical that year, and I'm getting a first place for my edible that year. Mostly CBD products and edible on the first one, but then the following year, I was like, what the hell with that? I'm entering some hash finally, and we entered the Tahoe Cure full mount hash and took first place. So,
Congratulations.
yeah,
That's awesome.
thank you. So yeah, and it's just kind of been up from there. We actually ended up entering the Organic Cup again this last year, just recently here, a few months ago, and I didn't have single source. Unfortunately, we had shut my garden down, my indoor garden down last year when my father had passed, and we just kind of didn't have our own thing. I had been working with my buddy, the Grow Father, as a farmer, and so we decided to collab on some entries. We entered his find of it's called Frost Donkey. It was bred by Fresh Coast Seed Co. And we took first place in melt with the Frost Donkey this year. And we entered rosin as well, and we ended up taking third place with one of the Grow Father's creations. He calls it Sheeshers, and it's actually an old pineapple train wreck cut of mine that had been circulating for a long fucking time, man. We brought this cut in, I don't know, probably 2013, 2014, somewhere in there. And it was really popular, but he ended up crossing that to the peanut butter breath and created the Sheeshers. And yeah, so we took third place with that. And then my fiance had entered the edible category. Heather Highlands entered, and she took first place in the edible category this year. So just been really cool, like really kind of solidifying, that we, are doing good at what we're doing, and, producing, quality, clean products that can compete, and that's been pretty cool. So definitely humbling and exciting and everything. So
Obviously, have you been a caregiver this whole time?
no, so actually in '09 when I got my card, I was just a patient. I had actually signed my friend on to be my caregiver because I was, like I said, I was still kind of in transition, didn't have a place to grow. I was working that job at the head shop, and we had, like I said, I ended up getting busted, unfortunately, before we even got our damn paperwork in. So, my buddy's like, mailing paperwork out while I'm in fucking jail and trying to deal with this charge. And um, we end up doing that. We end up, running our crop and um, splitting it down, doing our thing. And then by that point, I had my own place and, got some lights and got my own thing going and became a caregiver pretty much immediately. So I could, hold some extra clones and plants. And um, I've been a caregiver ever since. So probably been a caregiver since 2010. And yeah, just been no turning back on that. I've been here for, fuck, I've had 100 different patients in these 10 years. So 12 years. So yeah.
Right on. So what have you found some of the strains or cultivars that has worked best for patients?
That Tahoe Cure strain has historically been a favorite. It's still around to this day. We're getting ready to get it back in rotation here. But there's been quite a few. The most memorable I'd say are that Tahoe, the Cataract Kush, and fuck, man. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many. I'm trying to think, like, as of recent, like, the ones that really like did it for me. So I ran a lot of old rare Dangness gear that was gifted to me by my buddy. We had a strain called the Ox, which was a Katsu Bubba Cross. And then just a lot of different OGs, man. I've always been an OG head. That will always be my favorite is always going to be just good OG smoke. And I'd say really those ones have always been, the most potent. I grew a straight grape stomper strain for a few years back in 2012, 2013, and that was on a really really amazing plant as well. Did really well with the yields. Did really well on hash, bubble, BHO. No matter what the fuck we did with it. So yeah, man, just there's been a lot of real memorable shit. But I really try not to hang on too closely to stuff. There's so much out there and there's so much to find. And, the journey that comes with that is a big part of this. So, I lock in the real memorable ones. And that's why like the Tahoe Cure still to this day, that's still going to be the one for me, man, like medicine wise. I ran like the old Ohio Death Star cuts and, some of that other gassy stuff that was, real early in time and fire. And that's, yeah, that was always really enjoyable.
I like the gassy stuff myself,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I guess what are some of the ailments you've seen or the patients have came to you for or with, I guess?
Dude, I've dealt with patients with everything, from like, MS issues to, just basic insomnia, a lot of pain patients. I was always able to help pain patients the most just because that was what I had most experience in, treating myself for and those around me, my father and, you know, my mother and yeah, that's kind of what was always the easiest for me to help with. Um, some of the harder ailments, got difficult and I lost a lot of patience and had to let a lot of people go because there's even people that would try really hard to push you and their push would be out of necessity to heal themselves, but I had been rubbed wrong and pushed in wrong directions just out of certain patients just like inability to like really understand cannabis, and that it's not going to solve all of their problems. And so there's definitely was like a learning curve and some hardball stuff to that, to like just trying to help and like, not let not let some of that, push me around, because, unfortunately, sometimes people that are hurting and pain are rather desperate, and that can cause, a mix of emotions and, that kind of thing. So I always did my best. And, I'd, if I couldn't help anymore, I'd tell people, respectively, like, hey, like, you've really got to learn to integrate this or this. And, I didn't always have separations from patients on the best of terms. Like, we've all suffered issues and garden losses as well. That's affected, our rosters, and, that hurts. And, we do our best to accommodate and overcome and keep them moving. But yeah, just always try to stay on top of it, and, just be honest with people and with myself, and let them know, what I can really help with and what I can't help with, and, what's going to be beyond me. And, there was always a lot there. So was always just, happy to help the best I could. And, for a while, I kind of got myself too deep, and realized there was a lot that I also couldn't help with, and that, I had to be honest with myself and patients about, hey, this is starting to get a little bit out of my expertise, and, we need to, take a step back here. And, I think I'm only going to be able to help you with this or that. And, you're going to have to outsource otherwise. And was always good at edibles, making sure that ratios were correct. Dosing was always, something that I was actually really spot on with. And people were always grateful for that. That did have to mostly consume on an edible route. And yeah, so yeah, it was that's been a fun one, just throughout the years. And nowadays I take care of my family and a couple close friends, and I've had the same patients now for probably 3 or 4 years. And and that's who I'm with. And I've not really had much room to let anybody else into that. And a lot of that comes out of, a lot of those a lot of that need for comfort and understanding between me and, my patients. So I quit really wanting to be, the hero, and just really tried to like just stay and get better at my craft, and just take care of those close to me that, weren't going to push me too hard. So
Right on. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you could help patients by education as well. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Just, teaching them to fish, basically.
yeah, that's I spent 6 years at that head shop, and that was a big thing for me there. Like I was saying, like no one in town was, really like comfortable talking about this shit then, and I wasn't afraid of it. Um, and I really liked to teach. I still do like to teach, um, but unfortunately, like I don't really have a huge capacity for. I haven't had a huge capacity for it in the last few years, just because, my own journey. And we had a hard, a hard few years of just transition. And I had a back surgery in 2018, and then we went into doing the hemp farm. And everybody knows that did hemp in Michigan. That was um, a really fucking hard venture for a lot of us. And I had a lot of physical recovery to do after that venture. And then 2020 came, and we all got hit with COVID. And I kept doing my thing and trying to educate people, because a lot of people started growing and, taking stuff into their own hands during COVID, because they needed something to do. And that was really cool. And yeah, just since then, I just really slowed it down. I really just wanted to step back and just do my own thing and kind of focus and rehab my own physical issues again, and just try to like get back to like doing the thing, being good at it, and being able to like get into some of these competition categories and really like assert myself out here as somebody that's not only been here and who other people describe as legacy and whatnot, but just kind of like be able to not let people down with that and continue to pass the knowledge and pass along a fire bag when needed. And yeah.
Man, I gotta stay off that mute button.
You're good, brother.
Oh man, I'm really hoping to try to get more and more people uh, a group effort to get more people to start growing this year. You know, as the dispos and recreational cannabis make it harder and harder for people to find that good cannabis, in my opinion. I think the answer is to kind of get more and more people to start growing before we actually lose our foothold in that. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, I do worry about that a little bit in our state. Luckily we voted in rec, and we've got our 12 rec, and we've got one of the more um, open and like awesome medical scenes in this country, and we're allowed quite a bit, and that's been good for caregivers. And unfortunately, like the commercial like recreational stuff has really driven down a lot for us, made things a lot harder. There's a lot of people, like I was saying, like that started growing during COVID, and a lot of those people now, with prices down and the ability to grow outside, are have kind of hung up the indoor hat, and you know I implore people to really grow for themselves and do their thing. And that's like the sun grown celebration, like that's a lot of what that is about. And Chris from Country Roots, this we go back quite a ways. And I did some work for Lime Rising Farms Nick this year. Got to wash some of his Bicket OG, and that was really cool. I love that cultivar. It's still one of my favorite GMO crosses. And but those guys, they put on that celebration to really like promote the home farmer, and not necessarily like it wasn't necessarily supposed to be for the caregiver to enter or anything like that. And while it was open to it, um, it really implored the local like grow for yourself guy to like put themselves out there and try to like compete and show, hey, like even the average Joe can grow something really good and competition worthy. And when they show that, when the average Joe shows that they can enter a competition with something like that, I think it tells the average person that, hey, like I can grow quality for myself. I don't necessarily need a caregiver. I don't necessarily need to go buy this shit from a store. I just need to, like, yeah, take a step back and learn. And that those guys are obviously big organic guys. Nick is known for hugelculture, and Chris is known for just organics in general and soil making. And he's got a educational background in geology, I believe, which gave him a real edge in becoming a soil builder, and a home base for some people in some more of the northern Michigan rural communities to be able to like have access to what they needed to really produce a better quality outdoor product that didn't have to be produced by somebody else and funneled to them. They could just really get what they needed, and do their own stuff naturally and fully for themselves.
So do you start, how do you pull new genetics into your garden? Are you pulling in from, good clones that are, what I mean? You already know they're going to be what you're looking for, or do you prefer to drop those beans and find those keepers for yourself?
I do not really pull in genetics anymore. Too many issues, too many people that unfortunately like don't necessarily run clean gardens. And, I've been bit in the past, even when you think somebody is clean and they think they're clean, there can be things hiding, and not a lot of people have the diligence that, some of us have, and got to be careful. I've suffered some losses from bringing in cuts, and just that was kind of part of why I ended up shutting down last year after my father had passed. I ended up with an HPLV scare, and so I wiped my garden out and got some clones from a couple buddies, and one of them had aphids, and ended up with aphids in my garden, and then reset again and got some more clones and got PM. And at that point, I just was like, I was already so stressed out. Like I said, I just lost my dad, and I was just like, I'm not fucking with this. Like, I'm just gonna shut down. And I'd already been washing hash for a little bit, and decided that I was just gonna stay focused on that. But really, ultimately, like, I want to plant seed. There's so much out there, man. Yeah, and we're not gonna get to the bottom of that barrel unless we're dropping these beans. And I've got a box. I've got my bean box here is my collection is not nearly as big as some people's, but I've got some pretty cool stuff in there that I'm looking forward to getting in the dirt this year. And now that we're on the family farm here, and I kind of got a platform to in the space to do whatever I need to do. I'm gonna be hitting the ground running with a lot of that seed, and really looking for some of those gems that I've been looking forward to finding for our the last few years.
Right on. I can appreciate that. That's one of the reasons I want to get more people growing. I'm afraid that as recreational bulls over the country, that the genetics are going to kind of get bottlenecked down by the powers that be. Even at that, I'm breeding in general is like a super weird thing for me, because I think breeders are more worried about what's going to be on the pack than actual breeding out fire genetics that they're going to stand by, in my opinion. You know what I mean? When you make a project, or you design a project, you know what I mean, you don't necessarily half-ass it, you know what I mean? You put every last coat of lacquer or whatever on there until it's just as beautiful as you could make it. Then you put it out there. And I think, you know, choices of, say, like wood or whatever, if I'm just trying to, this is, high gloss lacquer or whatever, just, to
Yeah,
make it pop or whatever, are the wrong choices. I want to build for the right reasons, and because it's an end product. And I
yeah,
think more and more breeders are getting, I've been on the drum for the last year, and everybody says nobody will buy some seeds like that. Not for a while, until your canvas builds that reputation that it should be. But
yep,
I'm really hoping, I would love to see breeders just go proprietary by proprietary. This is my creation. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yep.
What do you
I
what do,
agree.
what
I
do you
didn't.
think?
I haven't really. I wanted to get into breeding for a lot of years, and I really waited for that reason. There was a lot of controversy, in earlier years about, different crosses and, hermaphrodization and all these different things, and test breeding and this and that. And don't plant bag seed because it's, potentially, from, hermaphrodite traits and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, the longer I went through this, the more I learned about like genetics and how they work. And, you know, there's some fire cuts out there that have been found from bag seed that are stable as can be, so a lot of it just goes into like having to do the work, man. And, that's the biggest part of it. Like these projects take time, they take years, and you can't just rush through them and expect to find stuff, and a lot of these guys they'll breed and they'll put out test packs, and before you know it, like the packs are being sold and these guys are barely through test packs, just because one or two people found these amazing phenos in these test packs, and they're already like blowing up, and they're just like, fuck it. And they start selling the seeds, and then, people are getting, having issues, and while other people aren't. And it can really be like detrimental to, a breeder that's trying to build their name fresh. And I just think it's really important to be, like on top of your shit in regards to selection and stuff like that, and making sure making sure these cultivars backgrounds and that kind of thing. So I definitely refrain from that. I'm looking forward to getting into that myself over the next couple of years. I've definitely got a roster kind of set out for myself and a nice blueprint, and I've got a few packs that I'm really excited to work with and potentially work a male, and be able to find and work a male to be able to, call my stud and move on from there. So
I'm actually stoked to hear that you're willing to keep that stud. That's another thing, I don't think a lot of breeders are doing. They don't give a shit about enough about their strain for repeatability. You know what I mean? Just to know what you're actually working with. There's no way you know what that male's putting out in that one and done. And
yeah, yeah, there's a lot of people just breeding with F1 males, and if you're buying seeds from a company and that shit has not been F2'd yet, then you're probably getting something that's a little early. And I think it's really important for, breeders to do that. Like that's my intention, find that F1 male, breed for an F2, and then really hunt out that F2 male within, or even the F2, female, and be able to turn around and back cross, and, just trying to stabilize and really like understand that, what, is going into that the male crossing is good, and then out crossing that, it's not wrong to breed with an F1 male, but, you need to put in a year plus worth of work with that and really like make sure that, what's coming off of that is quality. Cause, some things, you can cross to themselves, but like once you start out crossing them, they'll go crazy. And, you'll find that certain things won't outcross with each other very well. And, you got to be able to take note of that. You got to be able to like, tell your people like, because if somebody likes your work that much, and next thing you know, they're taking your work and they're looking for a male, and now they're proliferating your work, with your male, and it, or a male out of something that you bred. And if the work's not put in, they're setting themselves up, or you've set others up for failure, or for, a potential slippery slope. And that's not why we're here, and I really commend the breeders that, do that and do the work and take the time. And or, like even if they are doing, all kinds of stuff that they're not claiming that these genetics are tested in quality, and they're not selling them at, $150, $200 a pack, that they're either giving the beans away or, sub $50 a pack. And, they're really just kind of allowing people to like go through them with no expectations, and letting them know, hey, yeah, I mass produced a lot of this stuff. It's untested. But you've got to be upfront about that. And I think it's really important that, people are upfront about that. So hopefully in the future moving forward, that's, a mantra that a lot of people are going to have, and they're going to stick to, being forward and open, so this breeding pool doesn't get overrun. We're kind of getting into an era where, because we're doing hash, a lot of these breeders are breeding for hash, and a lot of these strains are becoming redundant in crosses. And we're seeing a lot of that. We're seeing a lot of GMO, we're seeing a lot of Skittles, we're seeing a lot of, all that kind of stuff. And I can't even hate, like, that's actually a pack. I just got a pack of GMO Skittles F1s from Ethos that I'm looking really forward to dropping. I'm really hoping I find some heat in there, but I'm looking forward to finding that heat to be able to breed with and kind of create, something from it, and not, just like homogenize that into, what is already kind of everything. So
That's the thing though. I heard you say it too, and I'm thinking, as part, So I think something that had a little bit of variation would be good for, like, breeder circles and stuff like that. But again, I don't think the public would like like say an F1 Big Mac. You know what I mean? Every time you go, you get a slight variation of what's on the menu. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Maybe have lettuce, maybe have cheese. Who knows? You know what I mean? I don't
yeah,
think you'd be satisfied with it. I don't think it's that big of a deal to walk it down a little bit to where it's a little bit consistency. And the other thing I worry about the breeder on that. You know what I mean? You get that much out there, say you make that creation and you passing around or publicizing that beautiful cut that you think is the winner, the apple of your eye, what you created, you
yep,
know what I mean? And then you pass out some beans and they end up across the country. And for one reason or another, this he ended up with the shittiest pheno out of that pop. You know what I mean? And
yep,
now he's running around saying this is your strain and shit. And you know what I
yep,
mean? And
yeah,
people
dude,
maybe they have never even smoked the real version of, and they're like, yeah, that shit's just not that good. You know what I mean? Until maybe someday they actually find some good shit and go, oh wow. You know what I
yeah,
mean? But till A to B, that reputation's kind of tarnished.
yeah. So I help bring up some, from Eco Clash. So Brandon, third gen family, he rosin, man, there were so many fucking rosin entries that he disqualified 10 entries right off the gate for like chalk terps. And one of the big ones he said was diet Z terps, which is, kind of funny, but like, being, part of, being a big part of the creation of that Z, and, all of that and whatnot, like, and then running an event, having people bring, stuff that's like from essentially your breed work to your competition, like, fuck yeah, you're gonna throw out the worst of the worst. Like, get it out of here. Like, you shouldn't even be putting, don't put my name on this, like, do better about, your work and your selection. And that really goes back to, the individual, cultivator and their diligence, and like, it's really easy for somebody that don't know shit to get a fire pack of seeds and then pick the worst pheno because they have no idea what the fuck they're picking, you know, or they pop a 10 pack and end up with two phenos, and they keep the best one and keep circulating it because it was all they got, and they're tied to either, like, the hype of it, or the name, or just like, you know what I mean, and creating some sort of attachment to some strain that doesn't really have or deserve that attachment or notoriety. And even if it works for them medically, it's like, like, if that works for you like that, that's great, keep it. But like, you don't want to go pushing that into the scene of proliferation and the future of these strains when, you're not doing that. And there's a lot of people just, like, if you are a home grower and you're growing and you are seeding your plants for your own right, that's fine. You know, but keep planting them for yourself every year and keep doing the work. And maybe one day you'll end up with a clone only that's on the circuit, and you're not a seed breeder and you're not selling seeds, but like you've got that one out there that's like everybody fucking knows you for, and it's clone only and it's yours and you can be proud of it, you know? And I think that's important, you know, to just keep that respect and that pride for what we're doing, and want it to be good and better. And, you know, like that's just, you know, my opinion really.
I think it's necessary, to be honest with you, you
Yeah.
know, and my other hope with the proprietary thing is that it just kind of slows down some of the hype times hype breeding, you know what I mean, and kind of
Yeah.
brings back a little bit of individuality, because now you've got breeders working to that one prize, you know what I mean. If I've got to put out one, this is what I want to put out, you know what I
Yeah.
mean. So they're putting their best foot forward, and I think that, you know, that time, that lag would really clean up cannabis, because, you know, as you've kind of brought up, you know, the kind of blending of the flavor and the effects of cannabis these days, because of the way breeding's being approached right now by so many. Yeah, I've kind of seen it in circles, judging circles. And cheers, Fang, I see you in chat, how you doing? And this is no reflection to the cup, but the entries, you know what I mean. I was blessed enough to be in the right spot, the right time, where I was able to see and smell and taste a lot of the entries.
Nice.
And so what a lot of us kind of was blown away by was um the tastes were so bland, and not bland in a bad way, but nothing really. There was only, out of everything, and I was blessed to taste a lot, only a few really stood out.
Yeah.
And this was kind of the question, you know what I mean? And it was kind of a weird conundrum, because you were sitting here and we're like, okay, what's wrong here? Because we're at an organics event, and, you know, the whole thing is, you know, organics is always pushed, you know, you'll get better terps, better flavor, better.
Yep.
And here the samples of before us, nothing's, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
peak. And so we're like, so we don't think it's a strike against organics, so it only leaves the genetics, the blended genetics, you know what I
Yes.
mean.
Absolutely.
And so yeah, I think we're already in that, you know what I mean. We need to step back and kind of really, and you know what I mean, sort some shit out before we keep push. Like you said, there at this point, even if we stop now, you know what I mean, it
Yeah.
would take a long fucking time to pop every cultivar that's out there right now.
Yeah, you know, and that's perfectly okay, but that's like, you know, that's the journey of it. Like, you know, we've got to do our your shit and run each other's cuts and, you know, run all that. But I really implore people to pop seed. Anybody that starts fresh, like, you know, like when I first started growing indoor, you know, I grew from clone. But you know, when I first started growing, I always grew from seed, you know, and you know, if it was my choice, um, you know, I'd be narrowing some of these down and then S1ing everything. And then for like my outdoor, especially, I'd be popping S1 seed every year. And then um, simply because I enjoy, like, I like the idea of getting stuff down to what I like. And then, like, you know, running that S1 gear and then running it seeded outdoors, especially so you can see its full potential, but then seeing the slight variations, you know, and really being able to see what like each of these, like, you know, genetically can have and unlock. And um, it's just really important, man. It's important for the future that we keep popping these beans and that everybody keeps popping what they got. Don't let that shit sit in your vault too long and go bad, because you're losing a potential chance at a gem. And it's just we all need it. We all need it out here.
I right on. So kind of with that being said, do you think that let me ask you this, how you feel about indoor versus outdoor breeding?
Um, I prefer. I'm gonna. I mean, I think outdoor breeding is really the way, personally, whether greenhouse or even full term. But it just depends. There's nothing wrong with indoor breeding. You know, you can keep shit clean, but then again, at the same time, like, I think it needs to be stated whether or not plants were bred indoors or bred outdoors. Like, I think there's a certain vigor that comes with seed that was bred outdoors under the natural sun. And um, there's definitely like something to be said about that. And something that I've noticed over the years is, a lot of the good seed that is around nowadays is bred indoors. So I can't even knock that, but like, I really enjoy the outdoor process. And there's something very traditional about it. And there's something about, the way that those seeds ripen, and, the certain vigor that they seem to, you know, have. And I just really enjoy that.
Right on, right on. I've just kind of thought to myself, and again, we're kind of so early still, I kind of would consider us to be in, like, say, the indoor breeding, that, yeah, we still can knock it out with some, good crosses there. And, but I'm more worried about, the long-term sustainability of cannabis, because it's a living, breathing thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when it's just like us, we're trying, when we reproduce, we're trying to put forth our best genes for, you know what I mean, what we're experienced to today. You know what
Yep.
I mean? And I
Yep.
think that the plant's doing the same thing. And if that environment, we're coddling it constantly in an indoor environment, I think that tool pack, you know what I mean? That junk DNA or DNA diversity, you know what I mean, is
Yeah.
limited because it just doesn't see, you know, uh bad winds, shit like that. You know what I mean? It's just, it, like I said, it's been more being coddled when it's being bred.
Yeah, I think it's important that plants are structurally sound and very healthy, and stuff like that. And there's a lot of people too, just they'll go to breed and their plants aren't the healthiest or this or that. And a lot of that transitions through into the seed, and that genetic, that DNA, and that genetic coding, like, is definitely transferred. Like, we as humans know that you don't we're not going to make like healthy, strong babies if we're having kids that from two, like, rather sick or whatever people. And it's like, we need to like make sure that that health and that structure and that everything is there, and that these plants are checking all the boxes regardless of whether it's indoor or outdoor before we're doing that. Because a lot of that transfers through, and that energy and that DNA transfers through, and it's really important to make sure that that stuff is on point, to provide the best. Like, and mainly, like, like the good breeders, they're doing it for themselves anyways. So they're doing it, and they're doing these things this way because they do believe in it, and they want to do it for themselves. So they're going to do it the right way. Whereas, some of the guys that are chasing the money on the seed are just pumping shit through, not really paying attention, grabbing this cut, that cut, might have PM or whatever, and they're cleaning it up and they're throwing it in there and they're fucking seeding it, and they're selling the seed. And it just, you know what I mean? Like, you just got to be careful, and make sure you're doing your diligence on your breeder too when you're buying seed, and make sure, they're not just a hack, really.
So I think I could get a fair assessment out of you, seeing how I'm not necessarily talking to uh just a Cali grower, you know what I mean? So what do you think, in your opinion, is the better wash for you? Is it that outdoor cannabis, or is it that
Always
indoor?
outdoor. I'm a
Yeah.
big pusher of sun-grown resin. Um, always have been. Um, there's a certain like truth to it. And there's just kind of something beautiful about it that I can't seem to get away from. Um, I've always I've always had, a higher terpene, um, and just, more beautiful plants, better color. Um, yeah, I just, there's something about sun-grown resin that just has always spoke to me. And I just think it's undeniable, that is the history of resin is sun-grown. And just because we live in Michigan doesn't mean it's impossible. It just means we might have to do, our work may be a little bit different. And I think that's something that's, people, as we move more into the hash stuff, that people definitely in Michigan are, figuring out now, like, especially after this last year, like if we have a good year and you do your diligence and you're, on top of your shit, you can grow some really fucking fire sun-grown resin. Um, you know, I had the privilege to wash, a good 200 or 300,000 grams of sun-grown this year, and I can't say that I seen anything bad, not a single bad one. And I actually get complaints sometimes about terps being almost too high, um, and them potentially causing like a terp choke, or just making it harder for like certain like older people to consume, because like there's a certain potency that's there that's undeniable. And we all know that terpenes have a lot to do with the entourage of cannabis now. And now that especially we're getting away from this whole fucking indica sativa mantra that has kind of ruled cannabis for all these years. And um yeah, man, it's just it's a thing.
So uh let's talk a little bit about because cannabis is a super individualized medicine, as you
Yeah.
kind of mentioned earlier.
Yep.
And it kind of sucks, but that's one of the reasons why I'd like to see more and more people provide their own, so they can find that sweet spot. Because as even as caregivers, or you'll never get that from a dispo, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That sweet spot that works for you and is repeatable for, other patients or the masses, is super hard. But how important do you think that is for, in general, for making hash? Are you, when you're it's your stuff, your flower, are you know what I mean, are you letting more the craze, the market, you know what I mean, dictate it, or are you dialing that plan into, where it makes you feel right? You know what I mean? The effects are there. It might be a little bit more toward the amber side, because you know what I mean. That's your medicine. Is that more important to you, for it to be more individualized to the high you liked at the harvest time, or is it more like fad kind of thing where you have to harvest it at X day, or this cloudy or clear to cloudy, the ratio? Because I think the market's kind of really pushing more to the early side, just for their setting us up for their convenience. You know what I mean? So they won't have to, they'll be able to just harvest, throw it in the freezer, make,
Yeah.
rosin and shit out of it. They won't have to worry about trimmers or curing or none of that shit.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess that's kind of the beauty of like making hash is it does make like the harvest easier. But like I try to stay away from the hype. I'll be honest, man. I'm a really hard one to please, even for myself. Um, I get in trouble with my partner quite often because, you know, we'll grow crops, and I'm so picky that I just like, you know, like I'll not like half of it and everyone else loves it. And I'm just like, yeah, it's not quite what I'm looking for. But I've created such standards for myself that, you know, when I find those heaters, like, you know, they do the thing, but like, I don't, I definitely don't follow a fad as far as cutting, like, or anything like that. Like, you know, every plant has its own, you know, window. And unfortunately, in Michigan, especially with sun grown, it's kind of a dance, you know, like with the weather at the end of the season, too. We were fortunate enough this year to have a really big, a long, nice, warm season. And a lot of people arguably dry farmed almost this year because the weather was so perfect and the rain was spaced, and the amounts of rain were that's like almost so perfect that like most of us didn't even need to water our fucking gardens this year, you know. And that kind of created, you know, space for us to focus more on, you know, harvest windows and trying to create a product that's going to be, you know, quality. And I try to, you know, I really try to please myself a lot, you know, in that, because like I know what I like, and I have kind of come to realize that what I like, people like, because I like hitters, and if it fucking hits, dude, and it's got that nose, like there's no doubt about it, people are gonna run through it. Um, and that's just kind of you know, I just try to stick to that. I just try to please myself, and in that, hopefully, you know, everyone else is happy.
And those hitters are hard to find too. Out of the top three, out of the ones that I really sampled at that last event, there were like two of them were very flavorful. One was like a black licorice kind of lavender that was like super memorable, and the other one had a really nice taste, but it had that like fucking punch. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? It was almost like that headband where it just kind of went in, grabbed you behind the, behind the nose and the eyes. But I like to say it is like that actually blinked my third eye when I hit that. You know what I mean? I actually felt
yeah,
that squint in the middle of my head and shit.
yeah. Get a blinker, man. Yeah, it happens, dude. It's there's some fire ones out there, you know.
So is that's going to be, it's getting harder and harder to find our niche in the new phases of cannabis. Is, you know, hash uh going to be the road you stay on or may stay on?
Yeah, definitely. So, you know, I have really no intention on you know, getting back into like any sort of major flower production. Fortunately, the farm that we're on here, our township was announced social equity 2 years ago. So, you know, I'm really lucky to have, you know, been able to move home and take over the family farm, and for it to be in a position to be able to be licensed, because there's a lot of people out here that can't find a place to call home. And I'm really looking forward into getting into, you know, micro licensing here in the next couple of years and just producing hash. I have no intention on really trying to produce flower. I want to stay focused, you know, on solventless extracts, and it's really kind of the future for me. Um, we intend on, you know, having a cut flower farm here as well. My partner's a florist, and she's been working towards that for a while now. And um, so yeah, we just, you know, I don't want to like blow myself out. I'm not trying to go in too hard. I'm just, you know, we're just trying to be a small farm and produce, you know, just produce quality, you know, and something that, you know, the people can be happy with. I just want to be able to take care of, you know, my local communities and stuff like that, and, you know, have them have a good access and to something, and they don't gotta, you know, get taxed by the big place, or, you know, drive too far, or that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm gonna be, you know, staying focused on resin, and, you know, getting our farm built, and kind of just, you know, keeping my head to the ground on that for the next couple of years, and just kind of see where it takes me.
That's pretty awesome, my friend. Pretty awesome. And but in the again a little bit in the same aspect, man, that's that you're giving more fuel for my fight about trying to get more and more people to grow for themselves, because I'm hearing more and more what you're saying in some aspects, not necessarily more and more people diving into, concentrating on hash, but just the
Yeah.
not, I can't produce flour anymore. It's just not, feasible for me at this point, or legality has forced me, out of play for the moment.
Yep.
And it sucks because that's where the really fire cannabis lies still, is in the caregiver slash almost craft market. And I think, that I'm warning a lot of people that, unless you start to DIY yourself, that awesome flower that you're becoming more and more accustomed to is going to become more and more bland if you don't start to dig in, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I really think, a lot of people should stay producing their own and growing flower for themselves. And I guess that's one of the main reasons I'll stay focused on resin as far as going into compliance and licensing is because, I almost look at it like a beer liquor thing. You know, people are going to homebrew, they're going to do stuff like that, and they're going to kind of create their daily needs. But there's a lot of people that are always going to want to, smoke something that's, good quality. They like that good bottle. They like that good whatever, and they want to have a good local access to that, or they like just just like good hash, and maybe they don't grow flower, or they do grow their flower, and they move it all to other people and they buy themselves hash, or whatever the fact. But there's a lot of people that are going to be afraid to turn that outdoor into resin, and that's where I'll be here doing my thing and making sure that this resin is available, and in a quality, and at a tag that where people can be affording of it, and just stay taking care of themselves. Like flower is flower is definitely a dying thing, unfortunately, which sucks. I mean, I love flower, and I'll always produce flower for myself, but yeah, um this commercialism has drove the cost of flower down so hard that us as caregivers, we can't even make a living off flower anymore. And that's hard, that's sad. There's even a lot of guys that are washing everything in a rosin, and they're dumping the rosin at rates right now that are hurting us hash makers. And it's just because they're scared. The market's rough, they got bills to pay, and no hate, everyone's got to survive, but that's exactly the case. A lot of us are just a lot of people are still just surviving out here, and unfortunately it creates kind of a toxic playing field for a lot of us, especially when a lot of us want to be friends, but we are also competition, and stuff like that. So hopefully in the near future things will level out a little bit, and everybody will be able to actually have their place and be accepting of that, and hopefully that brings the community back together a little bit more, and people aren't griping too much or too hard on themselves or each other about your this is too expensive, or your this isn't good enough, or whatever. So
Right on. That's another one of the things there that, hash is one of people don't realize the real work that goes into that rosin.
yeah.
It would be one thing if you guys were pressing flour, but that's the one of the all right. That's one of the all right. The things I have the problem with the rosin, I guess, a little bit is it. I've kind of figured if I wanted that rosin, I'd just probably just cheat and get everything I could, press flower rosin. Why, if I'm gonna put all that work into making that 6-star bubble, you know what I mean, that full
Yeah.
melt, why do I need to take it to that one last step? You know what I mean? You know, I don't know. That's kind of silly.
A lot of it comes down to like cleanliness, I think, and um, you know, a lot of people want a cleaner product, and they're fighting just for that cleaner product. And you know, pressing bubble, you know, you're kind of pressing the truth out of the bubble. You're pressing all of the mistakes that the farmer made and everything else out, and you're able to leave that behind, and you know, hit them with a good quality product that's not gonna, you know, really um, you know, like be unfavorable or you know, distasteful to the end user. And that I think that's really what it comes down to. Just, you know, like we put a lot of work in, you know, to get it to that full melt, but sometimes you get to that full melt, man, and it's not what you thought it was going to be. It doesn't melt in the banger the right way, or it cakes up too hard, and at that point you're kind of left with, you know, rosin almost can be like almost remediatory of bad full melt. Like, you know, you can take full melt that's just, like I said, that's not quite up to par, and you can stuff that shit in a bag and press it out, and now you've got something that is like at least meeting a par level. You know, you're able to move it, you're able to pay your bills, you're able to, you know, medicate, and your patients are now happier. So I think a lot of that came through just like the slow, like inevitable progression in like just kind of like wanting a cleaner product. And I just kind of think that's where like rosin's at. You know, it's just it's homogenized, it's standardized, it's clean. You know, and the end user doesn't have to guess. They can scoop the jar, throw it in their banger, and they're not having to like pay too hard of attention to, you know, things like temp and, you know, what that resin's doing. Like when I smoke full melt, you know, I'm into it. You know, I stare at the banger, I watch that shit melt. You know, I want to make sure that it can take reheats without caking up, and that it stays wet. And so it's just kind of a book to read when it's melt. And I feel like when it's rosin, it's kind of more of like an easy read. It's kind of a children's book. It's, you know, it's bright colors and flashy, easy words, and makes you feel good, and no frills, and it's just cut and dry and right to the fucking point. Whereas, yeah, melt can be really intimidating to some because, you know, there's a lot there that they don't understand or know about it that can be considered unfavorable just because of the lack of education. So, you know, rosin's great because it's a lot of people like to step away from solvent extracts, which I still believe, you know, that there's really good solvent extracts out there. But like, I really like the idea that the average patient is now moving to, you know, things like rosin, where, you know, we know that they're made clean with ice and water, and they're not going to have any of these residual effects on us. And I just think that's really important.
Clean medicine is most certainly important. Most certainly.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, and really that's what I think that's just ultimately where the rosin thing kind of, you know, took over, was just like an ultimate clean medicine. So
I can see that. I can see that. I guess it's just the consumption method that's got me still drawed back. Because even at, you know, the bubble there, even if I've got a nice 6-star, chances are good I'm still gonna put it in my joint. I'm still gonna put it in my joint. Um,
um, I still do that, you know, like, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I, dude, I still like to just smoke pressed hash on a pipe. You know, I love that flavor. You know, like it's a different flavor when you throw full melt in a banger. But there's just like that hashy fucking flavor that comes with just like smoking some melt out of a pipe with a wick, or even just banging it with a Bic lighter. Like, I don't even, I'm not really, one to hate either way. Like, I just really like that traditional hash. I just like hash, period. So I got a lot of respect for all the different types and ways. And, I put bubble hash snakes in my joints. I roll donuts, with rosin and, all of the above. So,
I have to agree. It is most certainly all good.
yeah.
All good. So,
Yeah.
what is your favorite terp profile? I know you kind of mentioned gassy, and you described a kind of indica leading, but what if you had your ultimate choices? What would it be?
It's definitely going to always be like the gassier stuff. For hash, I really lean towards the chems, and stuff like that because they wash. OGs don't wash, and anybody knows like good OG Kush. Just it's a greasier resin. It's not gonna fucking wash, man. Just no matter
But
what you
is it
do,
fire?
and yeah, and like like the old like the Crippy and the Triangle Kush, and some of those earlier OGs that were just like they just hit, dude, and I love that tough smoke, and that's really just my favorite is just a good healthy fucking joint of some really fire OG Kush, and but rosin's different. Like I said, I've always been leaned towards the chems. I really like the nasty smell and stuff. The stuff you would think like, well, why do they like that? Like it smells like feet or puke or baby poop or you know what I mean. And it's just people are like, oh, why do you like that? And I can't even tell you why I like it, man. Maybe I'm a sick motherfucker, but it's it makes me happy, and a lot of those strains seem to hit and, have a medicinal quality to me. A lot of these Z terps and rainbow belts and stuff like that are really popular these days. And they're really enjoyable, but some of them catch up with me, and I just kind of get sick of them. And, like that just like that GMO funk, like that chem funk, man, I've just never gotten sick of it. And like I said, and the same with just a good OG Kush, like that's kind of just will always be kind of my true love. And yeah, man, I'm always going to be looking for that good OG to just grow flower for the head, and it doesn't get washed, and that's always all mine, and don't ask, and you know.
So I'm kind of curious, as somebody else that holds that medicine, the power of the plant, the medical side, a little bit higher than most. Are we losing the message actually in the medicine of cannabis
um,
with recreational cannabis?
in a way, unfortunately, the younger generation, doesn't really like. They weren't. They didn't go through the medical scene like we did, and they didn't really like learn to use this and utilize it as a medicine. Unfortunately, there's unfortunately a lot of privilege in the younger generation when it comes to cannabis right now, and it's unfortunate because it is kind of taking away from, I feel like, the medicinal aspect of what we've got going and what we've been doing. And that was always like the forefront that we were able to fight for this in this country. And sometimes I think, it's unfortunate that we had to crutch on medical, because, I'm, a big believer, in cannabis as a spiritual tool. And, we weren't allowed to, use it as that. We were allowed to use it as a medicinal tool, but not a spiritual tool. And, a lot of people use these days for, things beyond medical use. And, it doesn't matter what, really they're using it for. If they're using it to ground themselves in one way or the other, and enjoy themselves, like, I think that's, still something that cannabis was meant for. But, I implore the younger generation to like really like educate themselves about this plant and not just, abuse it and use it, because there is a lot of that going on. And, there's a lot of respect that we had to have for this plant that isn't necessarily like required of this younger generation, unfortunately. So.
Very true. Very true. So when did I know you mentioned that, organics was pretty early on, was that just that's the way I was taught, or was it, more of a, understanding of, the good things in the soil was the driver in the organics?
A little bit of both, I always kind of knew. I didn't really like learn like why organics until a little bit later on, but I knew in the beginning that it was kind of right. And, obviously like everything in the earth grows a certain way. And, I grew outside, and when I learned to grow outdoors, we used, quality like horse manures and, you know, and, we're surrounded by swamp here. So I've always had access to all the different like, heavy humic and leaf mold and anything else like that. That has been a big, component to like good organic farming. And, to be honest, a lot of it I was doing and I had no idea what I was doing. And a lot of it was, a less is more approach that always allowed my gardens to do really well. And it wasn't until really later years that it was actually maybe even last year, the year before, that I even started messing with salt. And I did just simply because I had no knowledge of it. And um, myself, speaking on things that I really didn't know what I was talking about. So I took a while and was able to, I did a bunch of Dosatron installs and some different things like that, and really put myself into kind of those shoes for a little while to learn why, and what the difference would be and why, and only to find, that the truth was, where and what I was doing prior to that. And, that truth was shown to me in the final product and the resin and, the quality and the terpenes and, everything in the long run. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it is definitely a deep rabbit hole,
yeah,
but
man.
a very worthwhile rabbit hole for sure.
The, the thing about organics, I think, is just like, you can go as deep as you want to go. I've always had a really less is more approach. I do have a lot of education on it now. And, I am able to utilize a lot more, complex and more like, novice, like expert type things in my organics. Um, but, not everybody has to do that. It's really easy to get, a good base of, organic soil and some basic amendments, and just less is more of that plant, and allow it to do what it does, especially outdoors under the sun. um Man, you ain't got to give them a lot. They generally get what they need. And whether you're in native soil or you're in a raised pot or whatever, like um it's just really, a lot more forgiving outdoors than it is indoors to grow some good quality organic.
Uh, I, I think you're right on the path there. Just because there's so many, I've always been again an advocate that some stressors on the plant produce higher terpene profiles and just overall resin production.
Yeah. Plant stress does attribute to that, and there's nothing wrong with that. We want, none of us want to go through life without any issues, because we're not going to be strong. We're not going to be able to deal with anything. And like finding those cultivars that can take that stress and transfer it into, transfer that stress energy into something that's, usable, and like, the plant's able to like, mitigate that and turn it into a more potent, turn itself into a more potent product just out of its own strife. And I think the same goes, for humans. And that's, a big relation there to that is, like we become more potent as humans, the more shit we deal with and learn how to deal with. And I just think that correlation should be well recognized, like we were saying early in the beginning, what cannabis teaches about ourselves, and stuff like that. And I just think that's really important to pay attention to.
So next couple questions, I guess, are back to the hash realm.
Yeah.
A little bit. So as you were sitting there talking about the OGs there not being a very big producer, you're absolutely right. But I've always, man, they're bag wreckers for one. That's what I call them. You better have some alcohol on hand because you're only going to get one pull before you have to clean that bag before the next round. But and you lose a lot through that process. But I know every time when that first pull, especially if I'm squeezing out that 220 and my hands stick to that bag, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in for some goodies here. But I always find that super stickiness a sign of just full melt in itself. So what do you think that's actually based in the resin gland itself, or is that more, fats, lipids, and stuff like that? Where's that oil coming from on them OGs, and where's that stickiness come from? I've always kind of wondered that. What's your opinion?
Generally, it seems like, there's smaller resin heads, but there's certain terpenes that, are pretty, knowingly existent, some of those OGs. And I think, some of that is just like they're greasy, man. And a lot of those terpenes are like, they want to dissolve it in the water. And I think when that starts to happen, like, just like a lot of people too also don't have like cold enough rooms to really produce like these kinds of resins, or like, or to really process these kinds of resins. So it can be really difficult, like some of these OGs just grease, man. And I've found there's some of them like where, dude, if you want rosin from it, dude, you're almost better off pressing fucking flower rosin on some of them rather than trying to wash the shit and just, press yourself a few dabs as you go and smoke the OG. And, but like, it's really hard to say. Like, it's nice running into those ones that have all those profiles, but then have that sandier head where that you're gonna be able to like collect it, not destroy your bags, grease out your fucking bags. I've had strains that aren't supposed to do that, and then next thing you know, like I'm fucking through 2 or 3 bag sets because they're gumming up everything so fast. And so yeah, that's a really hard one. Like you just gotta like, be careful and really kind of like put in the work. And unfortunately, you're probably going to lose a little bit to some of those, in your first couple of rounds, learning that these things don't wash and that you're probably better off doing something else with them or just smoking the flower. But yeah, there's a lot of that resin that's just really unwashable and uncollectible, in a way. And I think we're still trying to figure out and how to extract some of those, but also I think that's where the breeding kind of comes in play. Is now these guys are breeding to try to really like combine these traits and really breed plants with resin that have viable heads that are collectible, that do have these terpenes, and without all of the loss of loss of terps and fats or lipids and shit that are lost to water and, causing a mess in your bags and whatnot. So I think we're getting there slowly, but yeah, there's a lot of variables, so it can be interesting.
Right on. Yeah. And there's a lot of variables in making hash for sure. And temperature being one. So I guess I want to start from the beginning because most, it's not too often you get, some great people in with some great hash advice, and everybody likes to make their hash.
Yep.
So, do you mind like sharing a little bit of your technique? I mean, so we've heard, the straight to the freezer, the fresh frozen. I guess to me, there's a fine medium. I like it right in the middle, not necessarily a dry product, but something that's kind of shriveled for a day before I throw it into the freezer. It's how do you like to prep your stuff? If I guess sometimes it's whatever they bring you, right? But what in a perfect world, what would your material be like?
Um, I like plants to be harvested like, like soil masses are fully dried out. Plants not like wilting or drying yet, but it's like you're harvesting that plant right before it like basically loses its ability to draw anything from that soil and keep it, upright. I like a little bit of rigidity and water left in that plant. But not enough where like when, it gets so frozen, it's going to start, popping cellular structure. But Yeah, I've always preferred the whole plant fresh frozen. I try to stay away from like day dry stuff just because, like stickiness and whatnot. Like it sometimes, it gets to be a pain in the ass to like, like harvest plants that are, in that day dry, and it could just be really difficult. But whole plant fresh frozen has just kind of like always been the way. Even when I was just washing like trim back in the day, it was fresh frozen. We like I've always smoked OGs, and people will talk shit about wet trimming, but like I fucking still to this day will wet trim my OGs. And because it creates a certain density that I like to the nug once it's trimmed, and that always allowed me to then have that fresh frozen trim to be able to wash, for my hash. So, yep, always been a big fan of the fresh frozen. It's just kind of always been the way. And it's always been produced a better quality product for me than anything that's been dry trimmed.
I agree 100%. I do like to if possible, let my because I'm still working out of making most of my hash out of trim and stuff like that. The bud for me and my patients, of course. Uh
There's nothing wrong with that.
but I guess that's another quick question I have for you. Are you working the material a little bit longer, or are you kind of like crushing some of these buds up a little bit as you know what I mean? You put them into the machine or the can.
I do a little bit longer washes, I feel like, than most people. But I also like have like a way better like rinsing technique than most people. And a big part of like clean hash, man, is in the rinse. Um, a lot of these guys are really afraid to put pressure through that material in those bags, is they're afraid they're going to push the resin heads through to the next bag. And those resin heads, if your room's cold, those resin heads are hard and they're not pushing through that micron. But that plant material, if it's in there, or anything else for that matters, it will. It's soft, it's pliable. It'll usually slide through, those microns and continue on to the next. And um, yeah, I just really think like, rinsing it, and people, really should allow their, rinsing wand to have a good amount of pressure, and they should not be conservative in the rinse at all. Um, I have always been a recirculator. Like I don't just wash and dump and wash and dump. Where I reuse the water, and a big reason for that is terpenes are lost to the water, and why not let the rest of those runs bathe in those terpenes while you're continuing to wash and break those nugs down and collect the rest of the resin. Um, there are instances where, especially with outdoor, your water gets dirty. So maybe like, that first wash, we'll do short wash and, like, and then dump that water. And even though, it's got some of that terp in it and then refill, just in order to get rid of maybe some of, potential, like, you know, just dirt or whatever, might be, from the outdoor season. Um, and, yeah, and just kind of allow that to wash through. And like I said, rinsing's a big, big, big thing. And I feel like a lot of people maybe don't rinse well enough, and or they press too hard and too hot, and that's where a lot of these colors and some of these undesirable things are coming out in like their rosin or their foam out. So
I used to for years and years did the recirculation of the water, but I ended up kind of throwing it to the side because um it just seemed to be slowing up my pulls, and each round seemed to be getting thicker and thicker, you know what I mean? And it just harder to run. So I kind of threw that to the side myself.
yeah, everybody kind of has their preference. I've always done really well with recirculation. And I've tried, multiple methods over the years, but I tend to find myself always, going back to the recirculation method, and it seems to be pretty tried and true for me at this point. And I feel like I've been able to always pull my best product out of that, so I stick with it. Despite some of the curves and whatnot, sometimes it's still really, it's the most enjoyable for me.
Right on, right on. Well, you're winning some awards, so you're doing something right for
I
sure.
mean, proof's in the pudding, man. I mean, these last couple of awards, I mean, I know we took a single source third this year, but the Grow Father is an amazing farmer. A lot of people don't know, but he's probably one of the most OG fucking resin farmers here in Michigan. Um, and he goes back to producing, resin for extraction, for solventless extraction, to like early, like even like pre like Michigan made melt days, and like, like so yeah, really fortunate to be able to work with him this year, and some of his strains and his cultivars to be able to be washed and entered, and because he's always had an edge, and and it's always shined in his product. So and anybody that knows that name knows he was working with Smokey for quite a lot of years, Smokey's extracts, and they recently, have gone their own ways, and I was fortunate enough for Joe to want to work with me and do some stuff there, and also been working with Iron Roots a little bit, and we've all just kind of been crushing just because he's a quality resin producer. And I think a lot of people, like, got to stop and realize that, we say credit to the farmer for a reason, because it all starts with that, and when we talk about truth, especially in things like full melt and whatnot, we're talking about, the truth in the resin and how it was grown. And, it's going to tell us a story every time of how it was grown and how it was handled and taken care of. And, you know, um, Grow Father's rosin, Grow Father's just resin in general that he farms has always spoke volumes about what he does, and that guy can produce fucking the best resin at pennies compared to some of these guys. So, I've always given him a lot of props, and his love for organics and that too. So, it's just cool to see, people that got it locked down like that. Um, yeah, yeah.
How important is I see this all the time, and I was complaining about it a little bit the other day. Uh ice. for me, it's more, getting everything to as cold as I can get it versus uh, a lot of ice. And I see a lot of people when they make their bubble, I see that machine or container, whatever they're using, garbage can, whatever, you know what I mean? Just completely packed with ice. And I'm like, it's kind of, you're not grinding the trichomes off.
No,
What
man.
do you,
So no, you're totally right. I try to do damn near iceless washes, like I run very minimal ice. I run an extremely cold room, my room's 38 degrees. Um, and ice is only to get us where we want to be and maintain it. It is not necessary for agitation. Um, Frenchie Canoli, and something I got from him, and he's always talked about like that ice and water needs to be like a symphony. Like if you do have that much ice, like it needs to be very free flowing and moving, and not be like stiff and jammed up. Like like you want like an orchestra. You want it to be, just kind of like floating and doing its thing. And I've seen a lot better. I've seen a lot better rosin out of iceless washes and even full melt out of iceless washes than I have, than with ice. And especially like really high grade full melt, like because most of the time that full melt's made on that first wash and your ice is still really rigid. Um, like I will soak my ice in, like I'll ice my water barrel and then let that ice like create like soft, smoother edges. And then I'll use very minimal of that ice in that first wash, because now the hard edges are gone from the ice and the slush is gone from the ice. And it just kind of helps not like grind any of that material. And when you're trying to pull that really like, when you're trying to pull 6-star first wash, man, you can't have anything like really like abrasive on that nug material. And you just got to be really diligent about how you approach that. And like I've been fortunate, that my brain works in a way that's allowed me to step back and evaluate these things and come up with different methodologies to achieve that. So
you kind of dipped into one of my questions there. Who have been some of your hash mentors over the years?
oh man, um, definitely, Marcus, BC Bubba Man, Frenchie Canoli, and any of these old fucking, Easterners that, like we don't know. Like, I always followed, traditional hashish from, all those, like the, Afghanistan and Hindu Kush regions and type stuff. And, like the nobodies, I think, of hash are more important than the somebodies these days. And, like there's a lot of, newer guys out here that are fucking killing it. And, I'm fortunate that I feel like, I'm able to even look up to people that are younger than me. And, that's always been, I feel like a quality trait of mine in this game is, to not let like age or, time here really dictate whether or not somebody can be an influence to me in this. And, the older guys are always going to be, the influence, the guys that I followed. I'm potentially like a little brother in age to some of these guys, like, some of these guys are, mid 40s and that have been doing it. And it's really hard to kind of, come up with a lot of names off the top of my head. But being most notable, like, Marcus BC Bubble Man, especially like in the beginning, was one of the only guys even doing the shit. And he was really big into Sift. But I always, had a love for the ice wash. There's a certain cleanliness about the ice wash in comparison to Sift. And so that always drew me in. And I always just, tried to pay real close attention to anybody that I come across that was, making high quality full melt. My best friend Spacebound and Down has always been hands down one of the better malt makers that I've ever known, and luckily enough was always able to. He was always a couple steps ahead of me, and I was always able to shadow him and learn things, because he's always had a way of thinking that is unlike others, and I've always been really fortunate to be able to be privy to that. So um, it's just been really cool. So
Yeah, it's there's definitely some innovators out there, and I think that's really cool that you're not necessarily too wise to look back or learn from the young. I'm right there with you. I think it's awesome to be, because they've got, they have so much more to start with
they
these
do.
days.
We set a
And
bar, man, and they come through and they start at that bar. And
yeah,
like every time we do something new and amazing, somebody new comes in, and that's the starting point. And it's like, that's pretty undeniable. So
they look at it with a new perspective and, kind
yeah,
of attitude with it that brings that new vigor. So yeah, there is something to be learned from,
yep,
the younger generation,
yeah,
100%.
very much so.
So do you use I heard you guys edibles, your fiance making the edibles. Does she
Okay.
use extracts for the basis of her edibles?
Yeah, so we do all of our edibles that we've ever done, whether I'm doing them or she's doing them, are rosin. Um, and like I said, I've always been good with dosing ratios and whatnot, and I've always been able to kind of nail that on the head and know my strains. And I have some favorite strains that are really popular, like the papaya cake rosin is really like a great medicinal like consumable oil. The Tahoe Cure is a great medicinal consumable oil, like ingestible, and yeah, like that's really we'll always do rosin, even if recipes call for like an oil or a butter. We'll go ahead and like infuse that oil or butter with rosin rather than like a cooked down, 'cause nobody wants that green flavor. And, like I have a way about decarbing my rosin for edibles that allows the terpenes to stay in it. So like, for instance, like we were doing like fruity pebble cake pops with the papaya cake or the Flintstone cake rosin. And when those terpenes were maintained, like it transferred through into the flavor of the product, and it was just really amazing, And so that's something we've tried to like, I've always tried to like have some control on and kind of allow to shine, is rather than just being like a fucking random like shitty food grade rosin or a distillate edible, like I want people to have that full entourage effect. And terpenes are even that important, on an ingestible level. So yeah, I'll always be rosin infused on the edibles.
So do you think, how do I asked this the other day to somebody, and so do you think the terpenes, when you're like able to save them like you are and you're using them now in an edible form, do you think those effects that you would have had through the smoking of them, you know what I mean, in one form or another, do you think that translates over, to an edible when
Um,
you're adding just the terpenes like that, or is it a completely different niche?
I do for the most part, and like I feel like a lot of these strains are what they are, to people, and just because of body chemistry and stuff like that, and I just yeah, man, like it's the and that's exactly what I'm going for and why I try to retain the terpenes and whatnot. And I want people to have the same experience with an edible that they're going to have with like our rosin or our flour, and I just think that's really important to be able to translate that and allow that to shine through, and it keeps people interested in wanting to use them strains, whether it's medicinally or recreationally, just because if that's what works for them, that's what works for them.
I am. Again, I get lost in the recreational side of things. I really
Yeah,
do. I hate to
yeah,
say it.
it's
I
different.
know it steps forward for us, but it just feels like for the people that it's saved, you know what I mean? It feels like it steps back. It
It
really
definitely
does.
takes away from some of the people who have had to do this for medicinal, and especially those of us who've like built this on a medicinal platform. It can be somewhat robbing of some of the like I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but um yeah, it's just it can definitely take away from the experience. I think when people just consume on a recreational level, as they're not as apt to really delve into that stuff, because like they don't necessarily have a need to. It's like, does it get me high? Does it not? You know, and I think like having that um, having that need for something more in your medicine, and the way that you evaluate that, and like the way that that transfers through to us, and why we select what we select, from a medicinal standpoint, is most likely going to be different than what we're going to select from a recreational standpoint.
Right on. I just hope that because like you said, we've lost. I myself, and I'm sure some people too that's lost so many through the through the use of opiates and stuff. I've said it a lot on air. I almost think the recreational is necessarily a push to kind of like a bait and switch by the pharmaceutical companies, almost lobbying for us to forget so they can keep pushing us their shit. To be honest
I
with
don't
you.
I don't disagree, man. Like unfortunately, a lot of these pharmaceutical companies are like they're shit. Like my dad had a lawsuit going against Purdue Pharmaceutical when he passed, and me and my brother are currently trying to continue that for him. And like I don't even care. Like I'm not even after a money judgment or nothing. Like I just want to stick it to him, like whatever it is, whether it's fines or whatever, and just let them know that like we know, and that they can't hide from us anymore. And whether they're trying to pull a bait and switch on us, I think one thing is always going to remain is that even though cannabis is going to be, the future of it is going to be recreational use, and we're going to end up with it like liquor and whatnot. Um, People are always going to know that is it's an herb, and it's a plant, and it's a fucking medicine. And hopefully there'll become a time and age where you know we have this out there, and because it's recreational, and there are a lot of people that use it recreationally to self-medicate, whether they know it or not, it's not as harmful to them as like people that are self-medicating with alcohol, because that's what they had available to them. So there's some downsides, but there's some upsides, because cannabis is going to likely replace a lot of alcohol in the coming years, and it's going to replace that ability for these people to abuse something like alcohol for self-medication when they don't know that it's hurting them, and be able to replace it with something that is still technically a recreational product that they can take or leave, but that isn't going to hurt them. It's going to be safe for them, and is going to allow them to self-medicate, like in that safe manner, and not hurt themselves or those around them, because they're just trying to be, feel better or be better.
Right on. Right on. Yeah. Yeah, good answer for sure. I just, yeah.
Yeah, dude. No, I agree with you, dude. Like I do it every day myself, and I don't really want to. I really don't want to move into recreational licensing, but like for
I
somebody
just have,
like me who's been doing this 20 years, like I really don't have much of another option. So I feel like it's important for me to understand all sides of it and to be able to like really like gear myself and like kind of like humble that and like be able to like move forward in a way that is healthy for me and and be able to provide for these people in a healthy manner even on on a recreational market.
and you're seemingly a 100% an intelligent guy, and at the manner that you understand and weaving your way through the cannabis. I guess I'm more or less trying to pick for some advice, or I'm afraid because you're right. A big alcohol, we're putting them out of business, and they're one of the lobbyists for recreational cannabis right now. They're
Oh yeah.
sinking their face in, and I'm afraid this is what I'm afraid of. Basically, again, the power of the medicine is my fight 100%. It isn't trying to beat the drum for recreational or so I can
Yeah.
grow cannabis. I want to continue to help save some lives or improve the quality of people's lives. And I
100%.
want, when me and yourself are out there trying to save people's lives from addiction and stuff, I don't want us to appear like the witch doctors. You know what
No,
I mean? Because
no,
recreational cannabis is, kind of shun the medical, you know what I mean? So I'm asking, how can we keep them woke to, the medical message of cannabis, I guess is,
so
I'm looking
i
for that advice.
I think moving forward for me, what it was like knowing that now with a recreational platform, they've given us, the ability to have to. We kind of got to play the game, and for those of us that want to continue in this as a business, like, yeah, we got to play the game, we got to do the recreational thing, but there's nothing in any of that ruling that tells us that we can't continue to promote this as a medicinal product. Like, yeah, like we're probably going to be looking at FDA regulations and stuff like that before long, and we're probably going to have to limit language. But at the same time, if we're like still like pushing this stuff from a medicinal use and a spiritual use standpoint, I don't think it matters if that it's recreational or not. I think all that matters is that, when we're transferring that energy from one person to another about the use of this and how it's used, that we remind people that recreational marijuana has only created access, and it is not the end all of like it's not the end all of what is the image of cannabis. Like it was a medicinal product, and I think there's enough people in this industry that are always going to promote this as a medicinal product even through recreational licensing. I've already seen it for years out west, and um some of the guys that I follow and I mentor, Pacific Northwest Roots, Kaya, is, he's a medicinal man, like, and this plant is part of his like genuine like roots and his religion. And I think that's really important. And I think when people, especially like him, that, already present this image, whether they're in recreational or not, that image alone and that being that is them alone promotes this as, medicinal use, and really allows people to see, like, hey, like just because this guy has recreational product in the market doesn't mean that that's what, he intends for us. Like it's very much like intended for, medicinal and a spiritual use. And, do we enjoy like sometimes just getting high and letting go? Absolutely. But like at the end of the day, a lot of us that use this have a reason and need it. And I don't think that need is ever going to go away. And I think as long as we stay connected to those that have that need in a way, that it's always going to it's always going to have its place, and it's going to be really hard for people to like deny that and step away from that. So I think in a nutshell, it's just really important for us to stick our ground, and keep promoting medical use and advocacy for, whether it be like, transference from, other substance abuse or whatever, but just allowing recreational to be more of just like the legalized platform, and not allow like the image of like big consumer recreational to like take over what we're doing and, collude the vision.
Another great answer. 100%. I think is advocacy another big piece of it. I mean, it seems to be like we are getting somewhat caught out of the loop when it does come to legalization of cannabis. Should we 100% obviously be more involved in what's going on? Obviously.
Um, I think it's important for us to stay involved in what's going on, even if we don't like it. Like, there's a lot of pushback, especially in this state. There's a lot of people pushing just for a caregiver only type thing. And, a lot of people think that, the recreational doesn't matter how, what, where, whatever. If you fuck with it, you're the devil. And, like, I don't believe that to be the case. There's more than one way to skin a cat, and we're all trying to get there in the long run. And I think that a lot of these guys that feel that way are they're just either caught in their ways and afraid to adapt, or something or other. And it's they're really gonna beat themselves up in the long run. Like, I think it's really important for us to stay on this forefront, despite whether we believe in it or not, because there's a certain like there's a certain control in it that we're never gonna have, you know. And while we can voice as much as we can voice, and we can vote, and we can do all these other things, man, we all know that shit only goes so far in this country, and that shit's already so fucking corrupt, you know. And so I think, like I said, just like staying involved regardless, so we can like even mitigate these small like issues, like when they do come up, because we can only control so much. And and when the bigger issues aren't solved for us, really learning how to overcome and adapt to those and stay moving without letting these bigwigs and these suits and these fucking Brads and Chads kind of screw us and screw us into a corner, and out of our farms and out of our way of life.
So I want to take it back a little bit further. Something else you've kind of got a little bit experience with, and that's the hemp side of cannabis.
Yeah.
As of everything else, it seems like we do here. Are we going ass backwards at like cannabis in general? I mean, I can't help but wonder why myself, knowing what we do about industrial hemp, why we're not utilizing, you know what I mean, this day and age, why aren't we utilizing it? Is it necessarily greed? Are we stuck at, I can grow the flower and get more money, you know what I mean? Screw the hemp that I'm going to get way less for doing the right sustainable thing. Are we caught on the dollar?
I think a lot of that, and my personal opinion is a lot of that actually has to do with like the petroleum industry and plastics. Petroleum is so big and the plastics industry is so big, and industrial hemp could arguably like destroy a lot of that. It's a better product. It can produce fuel, it can produce insulation, it can produce, fucking rope and every other thing. And, a lot of these, companies now are, using plastics or, whatever else to produce. And now like we're in a day where, so much of this plastic shit's been created that we're now having to create things out of recycled plastics. And like, we're kind of going backwards. Like, I do wish, hemp would be given a chance to really shine through and take over some of these markets. But like, A lot of that is just like, yeah, it's bass backwards, fucking powers that be that already have huge investments and that are lobbying against, it as that final like potential like fully usable product for all these different variable things. It's just because they've got and it's simply because we've got all these other industries in place that would be ruined, and a lot of these fucking rich assholes aren't willing to take a loss to transfer over, or just take a loss in general because some new industry is going to come back. And I mean, that's a them problem, really.
Right. Yeah, it just seems again like we're getting lost in the wrong reasons. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. I mean, I agree, but I think that's kind of the beauty of this plant. It's like, because we've individualized it for ourselves. I think in the long run, like just like keeping that individualized for ourselves and believing in it for our own reasons. And, day by day, every other person that does this will stop using, they stop that. It makes them realize, oh, I'm going to stop using this. That's plastic, or that's this other thing, because it's interfering with the ability for this plant's market to shine through. And the more I stop and the less I use this, and this, like the better chance it has in the long run. And, it's little plays like that, I think, that are going to take time and and build as communities, and then communities themselves stop using certain products and promote the use of more natural things, and then that spreads, and it's just going to take time, man. Unfortunately, I think we're going to end up seeing a big fucking crumble in the next 10 years, and some of these industrial like industries that are just overproducing shit and plastic bottles and whatever the fuck else, and we're going to replace it with some sustainable things. And there's already a shift in that, and there's already a big shift in people realizing that we've fucked up a lot of our planet. Pardon me. Yeah, we fucked up a lot of our planet with a lot of these things, and something as simple as cannabis and hemp is literally like not only a replacement, but an environmental savior.
There definitely is an awakening period that needs to come. We're not done with the
No,
advocating for it.
no, man, we ain't going to be done advocating for this plant for a long time, 100 years.
So where do you have any set plans for 23? I know it's a corny question, but it's just the end of the
No,
year.
not at all, man. So we're going to keep it simple, man. So my fiance and I have a wedding date next year, and we're getting married next fall. And other than that, we're at this farm now. It was my family farm. We took it over, and we've got a farm to build. My focus is, I've got a couple events coming up here shortly. I'm going to do that melting of the heads in New York here in January. I may go out to Coffee and Donuts in Denver in February and do that out there, and just trying to keep the networking alive. And but my focus really is, my garden, and getting some stuff down for these couple competitions. And the Hashish Inn podcast announced their competition, the Smoking Jacket, for 2023. So, and then with that, and then just like me wanting, that follow-up year C at Eagle Clash, like I'm not even gonna humor a lot of things. This next year is to build my farm and to get married and to focus on the beginning of my breeding projects and my hunt, and to really put some entries away for some of these competitions. And I'm going to keep it simple. As I stated, it's been a long road, and when me and Heather met, she had come off an injury. I had a back surgery. 2 weeks after my back surgery. She got injured again playing rugby. And then, like I said, and then we went into basically, I don't want to say a failed hemp project, but like, nobody did well. Everybody suffered a loss that got into hemp, and that hurt. And then COVID was fucking rough on everybody. And then, here we have been like tooth and nail trying to pull out of it. And then my father passed last year. So I'm looking forward to a break, man. I'm looking forward to just keeping my head down, enjoying my time back here at home on the farm, and being able to reconnect with my roots, and getting married, and getting my soon to be wife comfortable here, and getting her flower farm going, and that's really it, man. Like, we don't really have a lot of plans outside of that. I'd say that's about it.
Right on, right on. When you say flower farm, do you mean cannabis flowers or
Um,
flowers?
flowers. So we intend to go into micro licensing, obviously, but I probably intend only to do like the 150 micro, and that's so we can only produce like high quality rosin. I have zero intention on producing flower, just because, especially the way the market is, like, I just wouldn't be able to compete. So um, she works with a florist and has always wanted to do cut flowers, and so we're going to be building infrastructure for a lot of that too, and just to be, to have something outside of the cannabis industry, just because it can be, a hell of a up and down. And one thing's for certain: people always love flowers, and people are always having events and always getting married, and people are always fucking dying and shit like that. You know what I mean? And so, with my cultivation experience, and her love for floral, like, really looking forward to that being kind of a new venture for me, and a continued venture for her, and something that we can have outside of cannabis to really keep us going and build this farm up here.
Right on, right on. So will she be producing those amazing flowers outdoors, or in like a greenhouse, or is this an adventure where I'm done with those grow lights? You could use
No, it'll be a bit of both. I mean, it'll be a bit of both. Like, we're most of the flowers will be grown outdoors. A lot of these flowers grow from tubers or bulbs, and stuff like that, and seasonals. And there's a lot of flowers that can grow in greenhouses. And I'm probably going to be taking control of like all of our rose production. And that'll be kind of my thing while she does most of the other stuff. But yeah, man, no, we're definitely trying to do, organic cut flowers, in the same with the same integrity that we do our cannabis. So that's kind of really important to us, and just want to, keep that vision alive, and for the earth, and for the roots, and for this farm. And unfortunately, this farm was pretty run down over the years, and we've got a lot of remediation and whatnot to do, and a lot of things to fix here. And the plants that we love, that her and I love and work with, whether they're flowers or cannabis, are very healing to people and to the environment. And I just think that's really important, and really looking forward to, to that venture, and having something else outside of cannabis for cultivation for me for, in 20 years. Like, I'm good at growing weed. I've not grown a lot of other shit. I did earlier in my career, working in like, agri-science type backgrounds and different stuff. But like, yeah, I just, really looking forward to doing something else other than just weed all the time.
Nothing wrong with that. I'm actually super anxious to see how, your cannabis grow experience transfers over into the rose, you know what I mean, realm. It seems like that would be super transferable. You know what I mean? As far as, wanting that super fragrant rose, and, the best blossom you can get out of that bud. It seems like an easy transfer for you. or could
Yeah, I'm
be.
really excited. I think there's a lot of crossover there, just in a lot of different things, and I think a lot of it comes down to just soil knowledge and just different organic knowledge. And now instead of just studying cannabis plant, I can study all these different plants individually and their needs. And I'm immediately going to know now, reading what these plants need, how to take care of them, because I've already got this extensive organic and even chemical knowledge of cultivation, and knowing what to do and what not to do, and producing flowers without pesticides is a big thing. Because a lot of people right now are importing a lot of flowers, and man, you can't imagine the shit that they come covered in. So you know something also about flowers is, a lot of flowers are also medicinal. They also have medicinal values, and we want to be able to produce those, and have certain flowers that can be grown and harvested and used and consumed for medicinal values without harming people. So definitely a use crossed over there too. So
Definitely a lot of plants have medicinal value. Somebody I respect a lot the other day told me that in nature, for every like poisonable substance, you know what I mean, that you could consume, a natural remedy or cure is just feet away. It's just like nature's balance.
yep. Yeah, man. I definitely agree with that sentiment.
Nature's an amazing thing, and I think cannabis is, it's waking more and more people, or bringing more and more people back to center. You know what I mean? I think that's one of the things cannabis has been pushed, to the forefront to kind of bring us back a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah, it's helped ground me, and it's helped me, realize a lot of things, and help my life grow. And you know, I sure as fuck wouldn't be able to, even think about doing any of this cut flower stuff without my experience and my time in with it. So, just really grateful for that. It's really grounding, and it allows us to learn a lot about ourselves and the earth and life. And you know, um, I read, it was like a Maximum Yield magazine or something back in the day, and it was like an article about scientists saying that cannabis is basically but of a human brain short of being an intelligent species. And I kind of have this theory or philosophy that it is smarter than us, and it's tricked humans into producing its evolution. And like, we want to talk about like alien plants and shit like that, man. If there's one alien plant out there that's got us fooled, it's fucking marijuana. And it's really like, it's really like grasped us as a human race, um and and had us really progress it. And I think that's really fucking cool.
I think you're onto something there too. Uh, right there with the microbes, I think you could throw the microbes in with that too.
Yeah, yeah, microbes, like anything, anything fungal, any of that. You can't tell me like that mycelium, and mycelial networks and all that different kind of stuff don't have some sort of, they obviously have their own intelligence. And I think that's fucking huge, and it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, we're definitely just starting to unlock a bunch of awesome things due to the plant. And what I was kind of leading to with the microbes there is, I think they're another one that's got us tricked into, serving them, or or we may just even at some point be vehicles for them.
Yeah, like, our brains might be bigger than a lot of other living things brains on this planet and whatnot, but like, I think we're dumb to a lot of things, and I think there's a certain level of intelligence that exists around us that we just can't even fathom.
It's interesting. It'll be very interesting to see what it holds. I'm interested in having you back in a year or so, after dealing with the roses, to see what you've found could be transferable back, you know what I mean, to cannabis.
Yeah, man, I'd love to, and I feel like a year from now, I'm going to have probably a lot to add, and, hopefully some big ventures, and, maybe I'll have a big win, and maybe even at that point, an ego clash win I can brag about. But yeah, man, I really looking forward to just kind of this next year and in the journey, and kind of just trying to slow myself now and enjoy that, man. But yeah, I just want to say I appreciate you having me out, and I really enjoyed, being on the show and talking, and really looking forward to, seeing you out here and just chopping it up, and sharing with the community, my journey, and I'm really thankful for that. So I appreciate, you doing this thing and your show, and and what you do for all of us, and even those of us that aren't even that, that big. You got a lot of guys on your show that people might not know, and I'm thankful for that. It gives a lot of the smaller guys, a platform to really get, a place to tell their story, and I think a lot of these guys really deserve that. So thank you for that, man.
I appreciate that. And I agree. As you kind of pointed out earlier about that small guy winning the cup, there's a lot of amazing people out there, like you pointed out, that's just for one reason don't want to be known or just haven't been discovered yet. But there's a lot of amazing stories and people out there. That's 100%. And I appreciate you coming on and, telling me your stories and, refer your experiences with the plant, because they all matter. They all matter 100%.
Yep, I very much agree, man. Yeah, like I said, man, I really appreciate you having me, and it was a lot of fun, and looking forward to doing it again.
So before you let me go here, there's a few things that happen here on the channel. Now that you've done this episode, that Zoom link that I've sent you, is always good. So Wednesday nights, 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, our mandatory Weed Nerd World. So you can bank on there always being a Weed Nerd World on Wednesdays. If you're ever bored and want to come hang out, we always love, new perspectives, conversation, or just hang out and, smoke one for a few. That's cool as well, too. The other ways you'll find a Weed Nerd Worlds are, I kind of told you that time slot was basically open from 11:30 to 4:20 most nights. If we don't go all the way to 4:20, I kind of turn around and open up a Weed Nerd World. So they're pretty sporadic, but Wednesdays you can bank. So anytime you see a Weed Nerd World, if you up in the middle of the night, I understand most people sleep at these hours, but one of those nights where you can't sleep and you're just kind of bored and you go, what the fuck? It's a Weed Nerd World. Join in.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. Thank you for that. I really enjoy shit like that. And I do get, the occasional pretty bad insomnia, and, running myself on split shifts. So yeah, you can expect to see me around in the near future. I'll be piping in. I like to stay connected to the community, and I really try to stay level, like, and stay on the ground with, with the people, and not drift too far from that. And, I've always been here and been, one of the smaller guys. And even as things have started to pick up for me and seem to move rather fast in these last few months, I'm trying to make a point to not, let there be a disconnect between me and the other people as I kind of gain some popularity and whatnot. And just really looking forward to that. I appreciate that, and letting me know about that. I'm really looking forward to jumping in on those.
One last thing I'd like to get from you before you go, and basically it'll be like a commercial for this episode when I want people to, as these episodes go on, people tend to not look back, and I like to throw up these what I call sound bites to remind people of some great
Hell yeah.
episodes to go look back. So basically, what I'm looking for is my version is, hey, this is Eagle, and I'm on fucking Talking Shit with Eagle, episode 772. You can say whatever you want, as long as it's got that in the body of it. I'd be more than grateful, and I am ready. Right now.
This is Organitron. I'm on with fucking Talking Shit with Eagle. It's episode 772. Appreciate you guys joining in, and looking forward to the future here.
Right on. Thank you so much, man. Time is the most valuable thing we have, and you gave me a nice little chunk of yours, and I am most grateful to get it. I know you did battle a little bit of sickness in the last few weeks, and it wasn't just you, brother. So don't feel bad, man. I've had a bunch of people cancel on me. You know what's even crazier about this? I've had more cancellations in the last 2 months than I had the whole fucking time of COVID.
Yeah, bro. I'll be head up, man. Like, I've been to my regular doctor once, and I was in the hospital twice since I got back from California, and the shit was really bad, man. And we've been pretty hemmed up, me and my partner both, and I appreciate you, like I said, rescheduling with me, and just been trying to do my best to pull out of it. And I was able to kind of get my voice back around the other day, and I was invited on to do representing a resin with Jameson Wellborn, which was streamed on the Bubble Man channel, Bubble Man's World. And just really, really grateful for all you guys giving me a platform, and just try to pull myself together and get back on the shit here, and get these things done so the people can listen in. And I've gotten a lot of love, and I really appreciate you guys putting us on, and letting us tell our story. So anyone that's out here doing this, doing these podcasts, and really like giving the people an opportunity to get to know us.
It was, like I said, well worth the wait, and I'm looking forward to either sushing with you at one of these great Michigan sessions sometime soon, or hanging out on one of these sessions. Either or, definitely looking forward to it.
So Muskegon's, I know Muskegon's a little ways from you. They're doing a harem hash function February 4th, in Muskegon, I believe it is. And that's like the first harem I won't be vending. And me and my fiance are just going to be there hanging out, smoking hash, and trying to hang out with people. So if you're free and all that come February, and I would implore you to check that out and come down and hang out with us, man.
And it's not that far. It's only a couple hours, if that, and well worth it. My birthday's on the 4th, or not the 4th, but the 8th. So I'll just treat that as a little birthday present to myself.
Yeah, man. We'd love to have you down, and you got a lot of respect from this community. I think you'd have a really good time down there, and maybe meet a few more guys that might be you might want to get on the show here. So
yeah, right on. And I'd take any suggestions if you think anybody that you'd like to see spotlighted yourself. Please give me some heads up. I'd be more than happy to chase some leads.
Yeah, man. I'm drawing a blank right now, but I'll be more than happy to shoot you some in the DM. I got a couple homies out here that are kind of just pushing through, and you interviewed quite a few of my friends already, and an honor to be on here as well. And I'll be sure to plug anybody that I can think that deserves to get on here and tell the story with you. So
I'd greatly appreciate it. So I guess with that being said, my friend, we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. Again, one last thank you for the rest of you guys. If you're not going to come hang out in the weed nerd world, well, thank you for your time. And hopefully you guys know the deal by now. Don't forget to do something nice for somebody. Random acts of kindness really do save lives. A lot of people sometimes are afraid to reach out. So don't be afraid to reach out and help somebody, please. with that being said, Organitron, thank you very much for everything you do in this community, and especially for making people aware of this medicine. Much respect for you, my friend.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you having me again, and really appreciate the platform.